Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going on a pretty fascinating journey through the story of India's constitution.
It's quite a story.
It is, and we'll be using this really cool YouTube video as our guide.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's called Sansad TV Special, Making of the Indian Constitution from Sansad TV.
Okay.
And I have to say, even if legal documents aren't really your thing,
Yeah,
this one's a real page-turner.
it really is. It's so much more than just rules and regulations.
Oh, yeah.
It's a story of independence and collaboration
Mhm.
and a nation kind of finding its identity.
Exactly. And get this, it's the world's longest written constitution for a sovereign nation.
Oh, wow.
Handwritten and illustrated,
Really?
no less. Talk about a work of art.
Yeah.
But before we get into all the beautiful details,
Oh,
let's set the stage.
right.
The video uses this great phrase, the culmination of a protracted and meticulous process.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that just kind of appeared overnight.
Absolutely not. Calls for a Constituent Assembly started way back in the 1930s.
Wow. A full decade and a half before India gained independence.
So they were planning for this
Yeah.
long before it was even a reality.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of those early efforts like?
Well, M.N. Roy first put forward the idea in 1934.
Yeah.
Then the Indian National Congress really took up the cause,
Okay.
making it part of their platform in the 1936-37 elections.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most influential leaders at the time, C. Rajagopalachari,
Mm-hmm.
was already advocating in 1939 for the assembly to be based on what's known as adult franchise.
Okay.
In other words, every adult having the right to vote.
That's some serious foresight, but I'm guessing things weren't exactly straightforward with British rule still in place.
You're right, this whole process was intertwined with India's struggle for independence.
Yeah.
The video does a good job of tracing that journey back to the 1858 Government of India Act,
Right,
which, as you can imagine, wasn't exactly about giving Indians more autonomy.
right. So how did things shift from solidifying British control to actually considering an independent Indian constitution? World War II was a turning point.
Okay.
India's role in the war effort gave them more leverage on the global stage, and it became clear that the British couldn't ignore the growing demand for self-rule.
So the war kind of forced Britain's hand.
In a way, yes.
Right.
The Cripps mission of 1942 was a critical moment.
Okay.
It was sent by the British government to try and secure India's continued support in the war.
Okay.
And for the first time, it acknowledged that India needed a constitution created by Indians.
Okay. So not total freedom yet, but a big step in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The mission itself didn't entirely satisfy Indian leaders.
Okay.
They wanted more concrete action, not just promises, but it did show a shift in the balance of power.
So by 1946, the need for a constitution is acknowledged.
Yeah.
And the stage is set for the formation of the Constituent Assembly.
Yes.
The video emphasizes how unique this assembly was.
It was remarkable. The sheer scale of representation was unprecedented.
Wow.
With one representative for every 10 lakh people, which translates to 1 million.
Okay.
Initially, there were 389 representatives,
Hmm.
although that number reduced to 299 after the partition of India and Pakistan.
Wow. So they really tried to make sure every part of the country had a voice.
They did.
It makes you wonder logistically, how did they even manage to pull that off in a time before
Right.
instant communication and modern travel?
It was an incredible feat of organization.
Yeah.
And remember, this was 1946, before India had universal adult franchise.
Right.
The assembly members were primarily elected by the existing provincial legislatures.
So not a direct election by the people,
Right.
but
Yeah.
still an attempt to represent as many voices as possible.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is the diversity within the assembly itself.
Right.
You had representatives from every region, from every caste and class,
Hmm.
every occupation imaginable, a true microcosm of India.
It seems like they were very intentional about creating an assembly that reflected the complexity of Indian society.
Yes.
I'm guessing that wasn't just a coincidence, was it?
Not at all. You have to remember the context.
Yeah.
India was emerging from centuries of colonial rule,
Right.
and the assembly was tasked with building a nation from scratch.
Wow.
They knew that to create a constitution that would truly represent and serve all Indians,
Yeah.
they needed to ensure that those diverse voices and perspectives were not just present,
Mm-hmm.
but actually shaping the document itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Unity in diversity, as they say.
Okay.
It wasn't just about creating a set of rules.
Right.
It was about forging a national identity.
Exactly. And to achieve that, they had a remarkable group of individuals who played key roles in the process,
Okay.
including some phenomenal women.
Okay, now this is something I always love to hear more about.
India has a long history of recognizing the contributions of women in nation building.
Hmm.
And that was certainly reflected in the active participation of women in the Constituent Assembly.
So who are some of these key figures, the women who helped shape the Constitution?
The video highlights Sarojini Naidu Hansametta Durgabai Deshmukh and Rajkumari Amrit Kaur.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with all of those names.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about them and their contributions?
Well, while the video unfortunately doesn't delve into the specifics of their individual contributions,
Right.
the fact that they were there in that room shaping the future of their nation, alongside their male counterparts, is a testament to their influence and dedication.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to think about these women advocating for their vision of India,
Yeah.
for their place in the new nation.
Absolutely. And their involvement wasn't just symbolic.
Sure.
They were instrumental in shaping the debates around critical issues. And their voices were heard loud and clear.
That's so important to remember, especially when we think about the challenges women still face in leadership roles today.
You're right. It's a legacy that continues to this day,
Yeah.
with India recognizing and empowering women in all spheres of life.
Okay. So we have this incredibly diverse assembly,
Yes.
men and women from all walks of life,
hmm
ready to tackle the daunting task of writing a constitution.
Right?
Were there any, for lack of a better word, masterminds
Oh, absolutely.
leading the charge?
The video mentions some prominent figures,
Okay.
and it's important to remember that these weren't just names on a page.
Right.
They were brilliant minds passionate about creating a new India.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me about these architects of the Constitution.
Well, first and foremost, there's Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.
Yes. The architect of the Indian Constitution. That name definitely rings a bell.
But it wasn't a solo effort by any means.
Okay.
We also have Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, a renowned legal scholar.
Okay.
And then there's Benegal Narsingh Rao, who served as the constitutional advisor to the assembly.
Wow, some serious legal minds there.
Yeah.
Anyone else we should know about?
Yes. K.M. Munshi was another key figure,
Okay.
a lawyer, politician, and writer who contributed immensely to the drafting process.
So we have Ambedkar, I.R. Rao, and Munshi, quite the powerhouse team.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond their impressive titles, is there anything we can learn about them as people? Anything that makes them well-related?
What's fascinating about B.R. Ambedkar is that he came from a humble background and faced intense social discrimination. What's fascinating about B.R. Ambedkar is that he came from a humble background and faced intense social discrimination. He was a champion of social justice, and his personal experiences deeply influenced his work on the Constitution.
That's incredible. To rise above such adversity and shape a nation's destiny, that's truly inspiring.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that this Constitution wasn't just some abstract legal exercise. It was about creating a more just and equitable society.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes this process so compelling. It wasn't just a top-down elite affair.
Right.
As the video points out, the Constituent Assembly really emphasized systematic openness and consensus.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Systematic openness and consensus. How did that play out in practice?
Well, for one thing, they dedicated an incredible amount of time to this process. Think about it. 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days.
Wow, they weren't messing around.
Not at all. They held 11 sessions over 165 days, and of those 114 days were specifically devoted to debating the draft constitution.
That's a lot of talking. Can you imagine those debates?
Yeah.
What were some of the major points of contention?
Well, over 2,000 amendments were considered.
Wow.
One of the biggest debates revolved around the balance of power between the central government and the states. Some members advocated for a strong central authority, while others pushed for more autonomy for the states.
That makes sense. A classic dilemma for any nation, especially one as diverse as India.
Yeah.
I imagine there were strong feelings on both sides.
There were also debates about the role of religion in public life, the rights of minorities, and even the very language of the Constitution itself.
It's amazing to think about all those different perspectives coming together to try and create a document that would work for everyone.
It really is. And the fact that they managed to reach a consensus to create something that stood the test of time for over 70 years is a testament to their commitment and collaboration.
So this Constitution wasn't just written and then forgotten. It's a living document constantly evolving and adapting to the changing needs of India. What makes it so adaptable? Why hasn't it become outdated after all these years?
One reason is its inherent flexibility. It allows for amendments for changes to be made as society evolves. But perhaps even more importantly, it's deeply rooted in the values of the Indian people.
So it's not just a set of rules, it's a reflection of a nation's spirit.
Exactly. It speaks to their aspirations, their hopes for the future.
And speaking of aspirations, the video shares a powerful quote from Dr. Ambedkar, who said, "The Constitution is workable, flexible, and strong enough to hold the country together both in peacetime and in wartime."
Yes. That quote really captures the essence of what they were trying to achieve. They knew that India would face challenges, but they believed this constitution could guide them through.
It's a powerful statement about the enduring strength of this document, its ability to adapt and evolve.
It is, and it speaks to the foresight of those who drafted it. They understood that a constitution for a nation as complex and diverse as India couldn't be static. It needed to be a living, breathing document.
This all makes me wonder, what are some examples of how that living document idea has played out in real life? What are some of the amendments that reflect this adaptability?
That's a great question. One example is the amendment that lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. That was a significant change that reflected the growing awareness of the importance of youth participation in democracy.
That's a good one. Any others?
Well, there have been amendments related to social justice, environmental protection, and even economic policies. The Constitution has been amended over 100 times, reflecting the changing needs and priorities of the nation.
It's remarkable to think that a document written over 70 years ago is still so relevant today.
It really is. And it's a testament to the vision of those who created it. They understood that India would change, that the world would change, and they built that adaptability into the very structure of the Constitution.
This has been so fascinating. It's amazing how much there is to discover about something as seemingly simple as a constitution. And I have to say, you've totally changed my perspective on this. I used to think of constitutions as dry, boring documents.
Yeah.
But now I see them as living stories, constantly being written and rewritten.
Well, that's the beauty of these deep dives. You never know what hidden gems you'll uncover. And speaking of hidden gems, the video mentions something I found particularly interesting: the artwork and calligraphy commissioned for the original Constitution.
Wait, seriously? They hired artists to illustrate the Constitution?
They did. The calligraphy was done by Prem Bahari Narain Raizada, and the artwork was created by Nandalal Bose and his students from Kalabhavan Shantiniketan, a renowned art school.
So it's not just a legal document, it's a work of art. Imagine framing that on your wall.
Exactly. Each page is a visual masterpiece with intricate designs and illustrations that reflect India's rich cultural heritage. It adds another layer of meaning to the document, highlighting the importance of art and beauty in nation building.
That's a beautiful thought. It's like they wanted to create something that would not only guide the nation, but also inspire its people.
It's clear that the members of the Constituent Assembly didn't just want to create a functional document. They poured their hearts and souls into this project, and they wanted to make it something truly special.
Speaking of pouring their hearts and souls into it, did the Constituent Assembly do anything else besides, create the Constitution? It sounds like they were quite busy.
They were. The video mentions that they went above and beyond, taking on several important tasks that went beyond the legal framework of the nation.
Oh, like what? Give me the details.
Well, for one, they chose the national flag. They also selected the national song.
Wow. So they weren't just shaping the laws of the nation, they were shaping its cultural identity. It sounds like they were really laying the foundation for everything.
They were. They even elected the first president of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad.
It's amazing to think about how much they accomplished in such a short amount of time. They weren't just creating a constitution, they were building a nation.
Absolutely. And they did it all with a remarkable level of care, dedication, and artistry.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the creation of the Constitution, but what about its legacy? How has it shaped India over the past 70 years?
That's a great question, and it's one that deserves its own deep dive, honestly. But I think it's safe to say that India's constitution has played a pivotal role in shaping the nation's democratic journey.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? What are some specific ways in which the Constitution has shaped India's democracy?
Well, for one, it's guaranteed fundamental rights to all citizens, regardless of their background. It's established an independent judiciary to ensure the rule of law, and it's provided a framework for a federal system balancing power between the central government and the states.
So it's been the bedrock of India's democracy, providing stability and unity in a nation of immense diversity.
Exactly. And it served as a model for other emerging democracies around the world.
Now, before we wrap up, I have to ask, is there anything else from the video that really stood out to you? Any final nuggets of wisdom you'd like to share?
Yes, actually. There's a part where they discuss the Constituent Assembly debates, and I found it particularly fascinating.
The debates, yes.
Every word spoken during those 165 days of deliberations was meticulously recorded, and they compiled what are called the Constituent Assembly debates, spanning a whopping 12 volumes.
12 volumes. Wow, that's a lot of reading. But I can only imagine the incredible insights they must contain. What a treasure trove of history.
They really are. They provide a window into the minds of those who shaped this document, their hopes, their fears, the compromises they made. It's not just about the final product, it's about the journey, the conversation, the debates that led to its creation.
It sounds like an incredible resource for anyone who wants to understand the nuances of the Constitution and the complexities of nation building.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that democracy is a process, not a destination. It requires constant vigilance, engagement, and dialogue.
Beautifully said. Okay, I think we've truly done this incredible source material justice. We've explored the historical context, the key players, the meticulous drafting process, the artistic elements, and even the legacy of India's constitution. What a journey.
It's been quite a journey. I hope our listeners feel inspired to embark on their own deep dives into this fascinating document.
Yes. There's so much more to discover, so much more to learn. So, dear listeners, if you're curious to hear those voices from the past, to delve deeper into the minds of those who shaped India's destiny, the links are in the show notes.
And as you explore, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Given its history, its evolution, and its enduring relevance, how do you think the Indian Constitution might adapt to the challenges of the 21st century? What new chapters will be written in this living document?
Ooh, that's a great question to leave us with. Something to ponder as we continue our own journeys of learning and discovery. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.
Yeah, that is a great question to think about. It makes you wonder how something written so long ago can still be relevant today in a world that's, constantly changing.
And what's remarkable is that, for the most part, it has the framers of the Indian Constitution were really visionary.
Yeah.
They anticipated a lot of the challenges India would face
Yeah.
and built in ways for it to adapt.
It's amazing to me how they balanced all those competing interests.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only just touched on a few things, but even from that, it's clear that there were some uh, pretty heated debates.
Oh, absolutely. That's what makes those Constituent Assembly debates so valuable.
Right.
They give us a glimpse into the minds of the people who shaped this document.
Yeah.
Their hopes, their fears,
Oh,
the compromises they made. It wasn't just about the final product.
right.
It was about the journey,
The process.
the conversations,
Yeah.
the debates. It really makes you realize that the Constitution isn't just some old document. It's a living conversation that's been going on for over 70 years.
Yeah.
And every generation gets to add its voice to that conversation
Exactly.
through amendments, through legal interpretations, through the way we live our lives as citizens.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The Constitution is a reflection of who we are, and it's constantly being shaped by our actions.
Before we started this deep dive, I thought a constitution would be the most boring thing imaginable.
Yeah.
But you've totally changed my perspective. It's a story of people, of ideals, of struggles, and ultimately of hope.
It is. I think we forget that behind those legal documents are
Yeah.
real human stories.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that makes the Indian Constitution so remarkable.
Right.
It's not just a set of rules. It's a reflection of a nation's journey, a testament to collaboration in the human spirit.
Well said. I hope our listeners will want to learn more about this story.
Me too. There's so much more to discover. If you're interested in checking out that Sansad TV video or those 12 volumes of the Constituent Assembly debates,
Wow.
we'll have the links in the show notes.
Happy exploring. And remember, the story of the Indian Constitution isn't over. It's a living document.
It's true.
And it's up to each of us to help it evolve so it can keep serving the needs of the Indian people for years to come.
What a powerful thought.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring the world with curiosity and an open mind.